very good evening. Pranam to everyone. On behalf of Allahabad University Psychology Alumni Association, a warm welcome to one and all to this special session of SAMVAAD on the occasion of Diamond Jubilee celebration of the department. SAMVAAD is a post-pandemic child. We initiated SAMVAAD in August 2020 as a conversation in an online mode to happen once a month with accomplished professionals for the students, professors, and alumni of the department. Its primary purpose is to gain from the rich experiences of a variety of professionals ranging from academics to corporates, government and non-government bodies, and in the process provide connections between what we learn in the classroom and how it gets applied and adapted in the rapidly evolving world. We have hosted 9 SAMVAAD sessions since its inception, and alumni from diverse fields ranging from education, health, and clinical psychology to policymakers and academics in the field of management, including people management. This episode of SAMVAAD is very special for more reasons. We have 2 alumni on the dais along with a professor. So we have one alumni based out of London, Mr. Lalit Joshi, in conversation with internationally acclaimed and a very accomplished, very, very dear to us, Professor R.C. Tripathi. And another alumni on the dais is Professor Yoganand Sinha, our multifaceted Raghu sir, a distinguished alumni of the department, as the chair of this session. Now I invite Mr. Shivkant Sharma, writer, journalist, former editor, BBC Hindi Radio, and chair Sannidhya. This episode is being co-organized by the association and Sannidhya. So I invite Mr. Shivkant Sharma. Over to you, Sharmaji, to do the introductions and take the session forward.
Namaskar. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are. In this 30th Zoom Sannidhya SAMVAAD from London, we are gathered today to celebrate the life and works of Professor Rama Charan Tripathi in association with, as you heard just now, Allahabad University Psychology Alumni Association. A PhD and Fulbright Scholar of Psychology from the University of Michigan, Professor Tripathi has been one of the pillars of the psychology department of Allahabad University and made significant contributions as a psychologist, educationist, and as a social activist. After nurturing the psychology department of University of Allahabad for nearly 4 decades, presently Professor Tripathi heads Swaraj Vidyapeeth, set in 2004, to achieve the unfinished goals of Gandhiji's Purna Swaraj. Founder Director of Sannidhya SAMVAAD and South Asia Cinema Foundation, London, and my former colleague from the BBC, Lalit Mohan Joshi, is also among the many illustrious students of Professor Tripathi, as you have just heard, who graduated from the Allahabad University. Lalit will be in conversation with Professor Rama Charan Tripathi about his life and achievements. He will then be joined by a selection of Professor Tripathi's former colleagues and students who have joined us through Zoom. We are also privileged to have with us Professor Yoganand Sinha, who was not only a student of Professor Tripathi, but also a classmate of Lalit Mohan Joshi, and also taught in the department for a long time. He has very kindly agreed to become the chair in today's session. Welcome, Professor Sinha. So without a further ado, let me invite Lalit Mohan Joshi to take over from here and open his eagerly awaited conversation with Professor Rama Charan Tripathi. Over to you, Lalit.
Thank you very much, Shivkant ji, for that illustrious introduction. The more we say about Dr. Tripathi, the less, because Dr. Tripathi has been a legend and is a legend. First of all, I thank you, my guru, Professor R.C. Tripathi, for agreeing to do this historic conversation with you. I know when I first gave this idea, he was a bit skeptical, but finally got convinced. And I also thank Allahabad University Psychology Alumni Association, AUPAA, for making it a part of their Diamond Jubilee celebrations, which in a way is a grand finale today. I have been a student of psychology in college as well as in the university. And Raghu was with me, Yoganand Sinha, to speak of my friend formally. We have been together in intermediate and in graduation. And I was in the psychology department and a student of Professor R.C. Tripathi exactly half a century back, 50 years back. And as I often say, my only regret to this day is that I didn't go for post-graduation, whereas there were many of my friends. Kindly keep yourself muted. I just muted everyone again. So I still remember meeting Professor Tripathi after I had joined Modern Indian History. By the way, I welcome my sir Vinay Pandey, who is also joined. It's a pleasant surprise. Welcome, sir. So after joining MA Modern History, I met Professor Tripathi. I don't know whether he remembers. And I said, I'm still indecisive. And he said, Lalit, the doors are open for you. You could still join psychology. So that's what is in history now. And I still have the feeling that I am part of psychology, and today proves it. So let's see about today's conversation. For me, I think I can start with a little PowerPoint, which will give a bird's eye view of Professor Tripathi. And I thank, again, my friend Raghu, Professor Yoganand Sinha, and Ruchira, sir's daughter, for sharing some invaluable images. I must admit that I am hiding a lot of my nervousness, whereas I have done loads of interviews in my career, but today it is special. So let me share a PowerPoint with you, if you just bear with me. One of you could tell me, maybe Shubhra, you, that you can see the PowerPoint?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
We see.
Yes.
Great, okay. Right, let me try it. So this is, actually this conversation is honor. It's my method or my endeavor to pay my homage, my honor to my guru, Professor Rama Charan Tripathi. That's the poster that Uttara made for him. So now first of all, I would like to pay special respects and tribute to Professor Durganand Sinha, the founder of Psychology Department. We start, it's in the fitness of things, by paying tribute to him. And I understand that the department started in 1961. This is Sir's father, Pandit Dr. Rama Charan Shastri ji, and Sir's elder brother. That's at Sagar University as an MA student with R.C. just a second, let me, R.C. Mehrotra of linguistics and Mrs. Mehrotra, both were Sir's guardians at Sagar. That's a young Dr. Tripathi in 1963, when I think he joined the Department of Psychology. I don't know whether that suit was worn on that day. He looks debonair there. And that is with Dr. R.R. Pandey, former Vice Chancellor of Kharagpur University, 1964. All these images, rare images, thanks to Ruchira, and again, as I said, Prabhu. That's young Dr. Tripathi in 1968, much before we entered the psychology department. And that's him in 1970s as my teacher in psychology. We all know he became a Fulbright Fellow at the University of Michigan, from where he received his PhD and returned to Allahabad University in 1972. And that was exactly the time that we met him and he started teaching us statistical psychology. And we know that Dr. Tripathi left for University of Michigan before he started teaching us. I think that was in the mid-60s. He's having fun times with, here he is tobogganing, if I correctly pronounce that word, tobogganing with Bob Kaplan, who's here. Welcome to you, Bob G. And here he is with his landlady, Mrs. Ferris, Anupam Patel, and a Taiwanese friend at Arbor, 1968. That's a rare photograph, which I loved, acting as an Indian Maharaja with Bob Kaplan's play, Mission Improbable. And that is what made me realize that he had histrionic abilities, like a little bit of them I have. So I'm going to definitely ask him, what was this play about? And he was back. So he came back to join University of Allahabad, and then he went to University of Michigan again in 1982 as a senior Fulbright Fellow. Here we see him with daughter Ruchira and son Mohit, and I'm sure Ruchira is here and probably son is also here. Just a second. Right. And here we see Deepti ji lost in her thoughts with daughter Ruchira and son Mohit. A wonderful, beautiful picture. Here he is with his advisor, Stan Seashore. Professor Tripathi is enjoying with his two professors, Stan Seashore and Annie, and that's at University of Michigan. With two longtime friends, Robert Kaplan with us today, and Professor Hook, Professor of Hindi at Ann Arbor, 1982. And that's an Israeli kibbutz with classmates, Uri Leviathan and Dov Eden. I hope they are here, or one of them is here. I would know soon. So now we come back to our department. This is the time when, roughly, when I may have been there, of course, with founder of psychology and other colleagues, and our friend Raghu. That's the Raghu which I used to know in intermediate and in BA. So here is a rare picture. The young generation of psychology department in 1970s. Now they are all veterans. Professor Manju Agrawal, I hope she's there. Dr. Anjali Divya, and Professor Rashmi Kumar, Professor Navita Pandey, and Dr. Priya Karju Sumaya. Most of them are here. I think all of them are here. So that's a picnic, 1976, with Professor Naidu. I have great regard for Professor Naidu. My pranam to him, and I hope he's there today. He joined the psychology department after he served in Indian Air Force. I know that. So at 1974, Noor Manzil with Professor Ghosh. I remember Professor Ghosh, he used to teach us abnormal psychology, and I loved his accent and the way he spoke English. I loved it. I used to imitate him sometimes. So that's my play, Antardvand. I was so glad to see this picture in the library of Raghu. Of course, it has nothing to do with psychology, but the whole plot and it was fleshed out from my experiences in the psychology department, also in Allahabad University. The play is about polarization in society. It is, I mean, I think it's still true, and also about the conflicts. You can see Karl Marx and Mahatma Gandhi and the conflict. And when Priya Kadu refused because of being busy, that Namita Pandey came to my rescue. So I thank you, Namita, today again. As the A.N. Jha team, I don't know what it is about, but then, of course, this is a wonderful picture with all our colleagues. And here is another photograph, 1999, Lucknow. And now that's, as I say, that I view Sir's life in three phases. His childhood and his period of when he studied, and then his period as a professor, and then his current phase.
Oh, that's that beautiful building.
Swaraj Vidyapeeth. Sorry, I can't, there's someone saying something. Please mute yourself. Right, so we are coming nearly to the end of our PowerPoint. This is Swaraj Vidyapeeth. We can see Sir and Raghu, some program is going on. And then this is Purna Swaraj Shapath oath being taken in front of Chandrasekhar Azad statue in Allahabad. You can see our Reverend Professor Tripathi also taking this oath. So this is the vitality of Professor R.C. Tripathi. I think I can see the same energy in him as I saw 50 years back. And this is the picture which I will end with. So he stands in front of Mahatma Gandhi. That's him at the moment. There is a purpose, a goal that still drives him. For him, Gandhi still remains relevant. So that's the end of my PowerPoint. So I'll stop it here. Right, okay. Thank you very much for watching it. I hope all of you enjoyed it. So thank you very much, sir, for making time for this interview. Today we have your students, your colleagues, your family too, I suppose. So let me start by asking you, you come from a family of a teacher. Your father, besides being a teacher, was also a Sanskrit scholar. Was he your role model, sir?
So please unmute. You're muted.
Thank you very much, Lalit, for having me for this conversation.
Thank you.
I'll feel greatly loved by all of you today because there are so many of you present here and joined Lalit for this conversation which is going to take place. From all over the world. Bob is there, Anju is there, I can see Rashmi, I can see, so many of you, I can see colleagues from within the country. My very senior colleague, Professor J.P. Singh, who was with, served at Delhi University. And many of you, I'm not going to name everybody, but there are so many of you, I feel really, really greatly loved by all of you. Lalit, you asked me about my father. And yes, I would say that I learned quite a bit from his life. He came from a village where there were hardly anyone who had passed high school when he was going to school. And he, along with his one of his friends, ran away at the age of about 10 or 12 because he wanted to educate himself. Both of these guys, they reached the station of Kanpur, where they were looking for a place where they could go and study both Sanskrit and English. And the reason why they wanted to do that was because they were looking for a Sanskrit Pathshala, was because that would give them a place to stay and also where they could just sort of get free lunches and dinners. But then, you know, he was, I mean, these two guys, I'm talking about these two boys who had run away from their homes. They were spotted by someone who was actually a dacoit. And he ran a Ramlila company in Madhya Pradesh. And he persuaded them that, well, come with us and come with me, and I have a school, and there you can stay and study Sanskrit and English both. To cut the longest story short, you know, he struggled to educate himself. He studied Sanskrit, but at the same time, he was looking for not only Oriental education, but he was in search of somebody who will teach him English. He went to Lahore, completed his Shastri there, and then came back and joined Radha Swami Educational Institute, as I told you. And from grade 1, he studied again. I mean, he took his high school examination, he took his intermediate examination, took his BA examination. And you'll be surprised that my brother got his PhD before he did. My brother got his PhD in 1961, and my father got his PhD in 1965. So that was the kind of zeal which he had. And
so it was amazing to learn. It was amazing to learn that he was teaching Hindi to MA students, right, whereas he was not a teacher at the university. That's a great, that speaks great.
That's quite true. That's quite true. That's quite true. That I mean, although he had no formal degree, but you know, he had educated himself. He taught both. Sanskrit was not there, so because MA Hindi was there, and they didn't have a Hindi teacher. He was teaching MA students at the Women's College in Dalbagh.
You are very, if I can allow me to ask a question, you lost your mother when you were barely 4, and I lost my mother when I was barely 7, and I know how I carried that insecurity, but it made me a bit of a poet, bit of a caricaturist, bit of an actor, and bit of what I am today. But it does impact on me. Would you like to share your memories of that time?
Well, I have only 2 memories of my mother. The first one is that we traveled from Agra to Banda, where she lived, or her ancestral home. We traveled by a train called the Grand Trunk Express, or the GT Express. It was very, very crowded. And she was suffering from tuberculosis. It was extremely difficult to sort of help her come out of the compartment she was sitting in. She had to be just sort of literally pushed out of a window. That's one memory. And the other memory I have is of her funeral. Did I miss her? Of course, I think who does not? But that role was taken over by my father, and he cooked, he did everything, taught us. And in that sense, I think that place which had been vacated by my mother was just sort of filled up by whatever my father was doing for us.
That's so nice of you to share that experience with us, sir. And I've also come to know that how difficult it would have been for your father, that you and your brother were brought up by him and your sister was with your aunts. So I would close that thing at the moment. Let me go back to your own life. So you, let's start with a story that you didn't want to become a teacher and you became one and lived happily ever after. So on the way to Muradabad, you were passing through Allahabad. You had a few hours before you could board the next train to Muradabad. But something happened that changed the course of your life. So what is that story, sir?
A lot of my students probably have heard me tell this story to them. The story is that I had, this break of journey at Allahabad was of about 10 hours or so. I had arrived maybe around 6 in the morning or 7 in the morning, and my Saharanpur Express, which I was supposed to take in the evening, left around 5:30 or whatever. So I had this lot of time. And prior to joining Allahabad, the university, Professor Sinha used to teach at I.I.T. Kharagpur. I had graduated, from I.I.T. Kharagpur in 1963. And my exams, I think I still remember, probably it was in the month of July sometimes, which had gotten over. And I just wanted to see him because I had read his work. We had discussed his work in classes, particularly his papers on job satisfaction and other kinds of things. I was curious to meet him, so I came. When I came to meet him, he asked me a few questions. The first question he asked me, where did I graduate from? In my MA, I said Sagar. He asked me, all right, what papers did you have? I told him about the papers. Then he asked me about a particular paper. He said that, how much did you score in that paper? Later on, I came to know because he was the examiner of that paper. So he was just trying to assess me. Then he tried to persuade me. He said that, aren't you going to do some research? Aren't you going to go for PhD? I said, no, that is not what I have on my mind. I like to go and join some industry. He tried to persuade me. He said that, well, there is a scholarship which we have in the department. You can come and join. I said, sir, I don't want to be a teacher. I said, all right. If you don't want to be a teacher, that's fine. But have you thought about any research that you would like to do? I said, yeah, I would like to do some research. So, all right, write down on, maybe one page, what is it that you would like to do? So I wrote down one page, because he was persuading me, I had no way out. So I did that. And then after that, I left. After about 10 days, I think it was, that I got a letter, an inland letter from him saying that, well, there is a position which is open here in the department. If you're interested, come join. My father was, he didn't know, what to say, because he had been trying, to move from, a school or from a Sanskrit Pashala to a school, secondary school, from a secondary school to a degree college and so on. So he said, well, this doesn't happen, so why don't you go and give it a try? I came and I started teaching. My first class, I think Professor Raidu still keeps reminding me, was in the Department of Philosophy. This was, I think, August 20th or August 21st or whatever it was. And I finished my class in 20 minutes. I had absolutely no idea, I had prepared for the class, but this was my first class, and I had nothing to say, after 20 minutes. So I left. I was that nervous. But gradually things, improved. And I started just liking the place, the people, and the students.
So, sir, this brought you to the second phase of your life, career. But I'm just curious to ask you, because you were adamant in a way that you didn't want to teach, if you had not taught, what would you have done?
No, if I were to go by the kind of training I had received, I would have become a personal manager, an HR kind of a person, which I think some of my students here have become. I would have done that, but I have absolutely no regrets. Absolutely no regrets that I became a teacher. I don't think that you would expect an HR manager to get the kind of love which I'm getting here today.
Sir, that's great. You, shortly after joining for some time, I think you left for United States as a Fulbright Fellow. How did you find that that experience at that point of time, and what was the subject of your thesis?
I left in 1967. I was fortunate that there were, prior to my leaving, there were 3 Fulbright professors who had come to Allahabad, and particularly to the Department of Psychology. Lillian Fisher, J.B. Clay, and E.A. Corner. I'd worked with E.A. Corner, and E.A. Corner was the person who actually persuaded me to apply for a Fulbright Fellowship. And I would give him all credit for helping me in getting that fellowship, because he wrote a letter in my support. My experience at the University of, let me first tell you, as a Fulbright professor, as a Fulbright fellow, I first went to University of Detroit, and I discovered they didn't have a PhD program. I wanted to do a PhD. I didn't want to do an MA only because I already had an MA. So I traveled to Arbor and met one of Bob's professors, Bob Kahn. He was the chair of the Organizational Behaviour program. And he just said that, all right, I mean, you already have the financial support. I have no problem. Come join. It was that easy. So I just I kind of walked in into the university without any hassles, without even applying.
Right. Did you have any, I mean, because that was the time in the 60s, you had a particular kind of life in India. You were forward looking, but any kind of culture shock or any kind of adjustment problem? I know you had gone with your family, with your wife. So any experiences of that?
No, Lalit, I was not married then.
Oh, you were not married. So sorry for getting it wrong.
I married in 73. So
all right.
Yeah. I married, after I returned from the United States. Yeah. So, but well, it was a culture shock in in the beginning, but I just found people very, very friendly, very accommodating, very understanding. And there were lots of things which were happening. Those were days, I don't know whether you remember that or not, something which really introduced me to the American way of living was that you could dissent and get away with that dissent without getting punished. For example, one of the things which I did as a Fulbright professor, I don't know whether Bob remembers this or not, there was a Black Action movement where the blackest students were trying that the number of students who get admitted to the University of Michigan, that number should go up. I joined that movement. BAM it was called. And nobody pulled me up for that. There was this Vietnam War going, and there were people, who were protesting against that. You could easily go and join those protests, and nobody would say anything to you about that. You could just frankly discuss with them your political beliefs, and they'll feel very comfortable with whatever you were saying. It didn't matter whether you're from India or you're from Pakistan or where you were from. So that made me very comfortable.
Great. So when you came back, you joined the psychology department again, and that was the time when we were there. But before that, you caught me rightly that you were not married then. So after coming back, you got married. So your marriage with Deepti, was it your love marriage or was it an arranged marriage? If you don't mind my asking that.
No, it wasn't a love marriage, but generally what used to happen those days was that there would be, even now you have in times of India, the matrimonials. So there was an ad which was put out by my father or by my brother. And there was a number of proposals, and I met a number of girls, and I finally decided that there was this one who was for me. So I ended up marrying that person.
Lalit, if you allow me, I have a side story of which Tripathi ji probably does not know or knows, but wasn't discussing.
You are allowed.
Professor Sinha had a mischievous sense of humor, and he liked to play pranks.
I know.
And about 6 years down after Tripathi ji had married, somebody who did not know came with a proposal for Tripathi ji to the department, and with a packet of sweets for Professor Sinha. I happened to be around, and he asked me, जो ये मिठाई खा ली जाए कि नहीं खाई जाए, तो फिर ये हम लोग ने डिसाइड किया जो मिठाई should not be rejected. So knowing fully well, he kept that mithai and gave him a roundabout answer. And then we had that mithai and we shared it in the department. And we even told him that, listen, this mithai is for your marriage proposal, which we have consumed. So there was this kind of incident that took place with his marriage. So I always tell him that he got married twice, one for the mithai and one for...
Thanks for that great anecdote, Raghu. Thank you very much. So this was the time when I was in the Allahabad University, and as I said, Raghu, myself and Priya, and I must make a confession today, sir, that because I was also bit of an actor and bit of a mimic, so I used to enact how you used to take other classes, and I used to, like, before you came, sometimes it was very close when you arrived in the class and I was in the act of doing it. Like I would say 10.08, or I would say population parameter. I don't know whether there. So
are you talking about the accent? You're talking about my accent?
Yes, a little bit.
That had changed. Okay, all right. Okay. That generally happens. I think,
yes.
Particularly it happens in case of people who unlike yourself and Raghu and maybe Priya, they haven't studied in convent schools. My education throughout has been in Hindi medium schools. So maybe I think that may have been one reason why I picked up. One of the things which also happened, I think, which happens in the United States to anybody, is that they pick you on your accent.
Yes.
They say, sorry, say it again, I didn't understand. So I think you have to change your accent.
So inadvertently, you sort of gained that accent.
I did that, yes.
Yeah, I hope you didn't mind my saying that, sir.
No, not at all.
Although my friend Priya had warned me, you better not bring that in. So I will bring now. I want to bring in Priya because I want to make this a little bit of fun as well. And she writes to me that part of her quote was, "I'm convinced that as a social scientist, there is no one to match his conceptual clarity and depth of knowledge this side of the globe. I feel so privileged for being his student when I hear his name and work discussed with great respect and awe in academic and corporate circles." That's Priya. So I would like to bring in Priya. Priya, what do you think of Sir Tripathi? What would you like to say?
Well, I don't know where to and how to start. It's been a relationship, and a very rewarding relationship of almost 5 decades. I feel extremely privileged to have been a student, and I would, very honestly admit that even today, when I speak to him on the telephone or meet him, I still feel an uninformed, small, lost student. I want to just relate one thing that Professor Tripathi, I wouldn't say taught me, but said to me, which maybe changed my professional life and my life in general. I had stopped working on my PhD, and there was a gap of almost 3 to 4 years. And I was speaking with him from Calcutta, and he said to me that till now there is no task unfinished with me. And these lines have stayed with me till today. And sir, I would like to thank you for saying that, because I realized the value of determination. And I realized the value of picking up the threads and moving on. So you've not only taught us a subject, I think you have led the way to lead life and to fight battles. So I'd like to thank you for being with us and for being our mentor, for being our coach, our guide, our teacher. This is what I would like to say.
That's great, Priya. Thank you very much for your comments. And sir, I would like to ask you, what has been the secret of your rapport with your students, or I would use the word charm, the relationship that you form with your students right from that time till today?
I don't know, Lalit. I think it's for the students to tell me.
I think just to answer that question, I would like to say that, what we really respected in class and in all our association after we passed out from the university was to use a word like scintillating. I think it's a scintillating intellectual integrity and honesty that shines forth. And that is, that's what impressed us about Sir's classes. And I remember the social change subject that you took for us. And in that subject, he gave us a lot of freedom to question. There were very few students in that subject, in that course. We would disagree with him Sorry?
Only the two of us.
Three of us. There was
Three
also
of us.
Sweetie Talwar.
Sweetie
Three of
Talwar.
us.
Yes, I remember.
And I think in that class, there was so much freedom to disagree, so much freedom to speak out, which is very rare to find, even today. And I would say, I'm not talking about the academic world because I'm not in touch with it, but definitely the corporate circle. It's not a very common quality. So,
Right.
Lalit,
Thank you so
Lalit,
much,
can I just come in a
Priya.
minute?
Sorry, you're gonna, yeah.
Yeah, can I come in a minute?
Yes, please.
I'm just reminded because Priya brought up, and this is the question you asked. In one of our Upanishads, there is a very interesting characteristic mentioned of an Acharya, which I recently heard, if you remember, only 2 days ago we had. But Acharya is a person, of course, there are other attributes, but one of the beautiful attributes of an Acharya is a person who's not afraid of anybody. But that's acceptable. But the second line is more important. And nobody is afraid of him.
Yes, not
A
in my mind.
teacher.
absolutely.
And so that's the beauty. I mean, we could bring up topics, we could discuss with him. We were all in awe, but never afraid. And that central issue that you are open enough to discuss even his behavior in his class or his disagreements with our ideas in his class. That was one of the most charming things, which I think actually kept the department going and has kept all our relationships going. That openness, that acceptability, which comes only if you are knowledgeable and at the same time humble enough to take in oppositions. So that was one of the characteristics that we found all the time.
I think that's a very, very valid comment, because I would like to take it further and say that this was the kind of ambience of psychology itself when we were there, because I had English literature and ancient history. So when we came to psychology, it was like coming to a pleasant island where there was no segregation, no undeclared apartheid, you know, like in English classes, we would sit at a particular place and girls would sit at a particular place. But then in psychology, when you came, it was like breath of fresh air that you always felt. And I would like to bring in here, if I may, Anamika Bajpayee, who is joining us from Dubai, if she feels that she also felt the same maybe a decade or two afterwards. Anamika, would you like to come and say something?
Yes. Good evening, sir. It's such an honor to be in your presence. I was in the department between 2001 2003, and I'm so pleased to see you, Raghu sir, Namita ma'am, Rashmi ma'am.
We'll see her.
So when education, I always kind of, you know, epitome of a teacher is Tripathi sir for us. You know, the way he taught us, as you were saying, the open discussions, the availability beyond classroom hours. I still remember this was when sir had moved out of the department and had joined, I think, Pant Institute. And we just got to know that sir is coming. And, you know, the excitement we had as young students. And I remember sir was sitting in Namita ma'am's office. That was the first office as you would enter the department. And I believe Raghu sir and Rashmi ma'am were there as well. And we just walked in because we were studying relative deprivation then. And we had, you know, read about sir's theory. And we just walked in and we were like, sir, would you please talk to us about it? And Namita ma'am was kind of embarrassed because we just walked in, you know, like 5, 6 of us. And sir did. He just talked to us about it. And that's you know, what humbles us as students to see such greatness, to see such, you know, intellect along with such humbleness in a person who would not think about the status quo or not think about him being a professor and us just being, you know, year one students, you know, being boisterous. it is what he taught us. He taught us not only to be learners for life, but also taught us how to be teachers. And I do apply a lot of your theories, even today in my daily life. And we still teach a lot of things that you've written about, in our classrooms today. So thank you from bottom of our heart for everything.
Thank you, Anamika. Thank you.
I wanted to.
Yeah,
Robert,
Robert, sorry, I was going to come to you. You had raised your hand. Please, I was going to come to you anyway. So please go ahead.
Well, first of all, Anita and I would like to say hi.
Hi.
Tripathi was one of Anita's doctoral dissertation advisors on what is believed to be the first study of the pundas at the Mela. So that's a very special thing. And Tripathi and I were graduate students at the University of Michigan. So that's where we first met. And we're in a car driving somewhere in Southern California to go for a sailboat ride. So somebody has invited us. I wanted, seeing as Raghu, as you were telling a secret that Tripathi didn't know, I wanted to follow up by telling a secret that only Tripathi and I think know, although others may have learned of it. And it has to do with teaching. Rama, remember we decided to run a special workshop on a Saturday of a simulation that would be for the whole department, students and faculty, in which we would randomly assign people to 3 teams, and they would compete in a game to see which team could win.
Yes.
We didn't tell them, this was our secret part, that, well, they eventually learned this secret, but there's a bigger one. We didn't tell them, if you remember, that the chips were stacked, that these 3 teams did not start this game equally. Your interest in inequality and addressing inequality in society, that in fact, when this game started, we cheated and we gave, this game was not our idea, but we'd read about it. We gave one team, some chips that would enable them to dominate the game, and another team to really do nothing but lose no matter what they tried in negotiations with the other team. And then Raghu, you were in this simulation too, as I remember.
Yes,
and then there was a middle team. And then there were some other details about this. Now, when we were talking about, well, we'll just assign everybody randomly. Rama, you, as I recall, said, Bob, I'd like to make one exception. What do you think if instead for Durganand Sinha, if we put him specifically in the most disadvantaged social group, the lowest group in this set, that it might be a real learning experience for him? Well, our guests, from the way he behaved, as he already, he's learned plenty. There's no one wiser than him among any of us. That was my opinion. But we did. And as the game progressed, we had these plans, hidden plans. And as the top team got to be so very good, we now said, per the secret rules of the game, because you've done so well, Tripathi was announcing this, we are going to take 10 minutes out and never mind the rules of the game, because you are so powerful and so wise, we're going to let you make the rules. And so it's sort of like absolute power corrupts. Sure enough, the top team, I forget which of you people today was honored by being in that team, came up. The first rule was that if we ask you for your resources, which we need to dominate you, There's no negotiation anymore. You have to hand them over to us. Okay.
That's
and there was
Robert. That's a great tribute that you're paying. I think Anju wants to come in, but
Yeah.
I would like to come back to you about that play. That
well, let me finish because I'm a sentence away from.
Sorry.
I'm a sentence away from the happy ending.
Okay.
When that team announced that, there was a big roar from the other two teams. We had asked everybody to stand to hear this announcement. We didn't know what it was. And when it was announced, Professor Sinha looked at the rest of his team members and he said, "We know what to do." And they sat down like Gandhi and refused to play the game. And, that's the end of this part of the story.
Right. That's great. And Anju, you wanted to say something. Anjuji, you want to come in?
Yes, please. Thank you, Lalit, for this opportunity. Tripathi Saab, I don't know from where to start, and I'm going to get emotional. I'm perfectly okay with that. You have been my mentor from decades. There's so many different unique qualities about you. And if I may say that, I mean, I don't want to take too much time, but one thing I remember when I was doing my PhD program with you, and others were, am I there? I believe I'm here.
You're there.
Okay, great. So one thing I was noticing, which was happening with other batchmates of mine, were, they were getting a little help from their mentors and supervisors, but you wouldn't do that. That was not your style. You would let us go and figure it out ourselves. And I'll be honest here, I was a little miffed back then. But that, like I said, so many qualities, and that great quality instills so much confidence in oneself that, there's somebody holding my hand from a distance and saying, "I trust you, go ahead and do it." And that, I will say, I'm blessed to have a good career, and entire credit goes to you. So, dhanyavad. I really, this thing. I do want to share a hilarious incident. When I was in the doing my PhD program with Tripathi Saab, I was in his office for a meeting, and we were talking, and suddenly 4 or 5 union leaders, they barge in loudly, and they start telling Tripathi Saab, "Aap dekhte nahi hai ki ye ho raha hai, aap dekhte nahi hai wo ho raha hai," and they're yelling, and Tripathi Saab in his usual self is just sitting very calmly, and I got scared, and I'm thinking, oh my God, what's going to happen next? When they finished their ranting, Tripathi Saab quietly says, "Pata nahi, हमारी तो 4 आंखें हैं, तब भी हमको नहीं दिखता है." Referring to it, my glasses, it was so hilarious. I did not know whether I should laugh or stay quiet, but the moment was too hilarious, and that is Tripathi Saab. That's his style. Thank you so much.
It was so cool. So sir was so cool. So when you face such situations, sir, did you not feel, like these elements in the university, they were trouble creators? So how did you deal with, as a dean also, you dealt with them?
Lalit, I think what had happened was probably in the 70s. I got involved with some, what I should say, teachers who were part of various movements. For example, one person was Professor Banwarilal Sharma. I got involved in the JP's movement. I also got involved in teachers, various kinds of, activities, like one involving where we sat on dharnas and we did all kinds of things. And the reason for that was that we were trying to oppose use of unfair means in examinations. And this had brought me into contact with all of these student leaders, and I knew, what they were like, and they were able to relate with me and with other teachers, like Professor Banwarilal Sharma and others like him. So I had no problem, actually. I never faced any problem with these students. As a matter of fact, one of the incidents I'd like to tell you about is that once Professor Sinha was sitting in his office, maybe it was 1981 or something like that, and some students came in. They wanted Professor Sinha to raise the number of seats in BA. I was there, and I intervened and said, I will do it very gladly. The only thing which you have to do is we are organizing a meeting of the students, convince these students, if these students feel that seats must be raised, we will do it. Nugana Singh and Parmanand Misra, I think some of these people you would know, they were there. They went back because they didn't know what to do. We phoned them and asked them to come back and say that address, our students are waiting for you. None of them showed up. So, those were the kind of things which we used to do because we were working with the student leaders, never faced any problem actually with them. You were going to ask Bob because I think he's probably...
Yeah, I'm very keen to ask. Thank you for reminding me, sir. Bob, if you can hear me, I saw that in the PowerPoint also, I showed that picture. I am very curious to know what was that play and that film, and how did you find that sir has histrionic abilities of an actor?
I didn't have any, actually. I discovered that.
Yeah, over to you, Robert.
Well, as graduate students, Tripathi and a whole bunch of us, just to let off steam, is to take an old 8mm camera and make up a story. The best stories were ones that we sort of wrote on a yellow sheet of paper 20 minutes before we knew what we were doing. But this one 2 days before, so that Tripathi could come in costume. Do you have a picture?
Yeah.
We just showed a picture.
He showed the picture.
Yeah, I showed the picture in my PowerPoint.
Okay, good. So
Bob, there is no gorilla in that picture.
Well,
your signature gorilla, which you used to keep with every picture, that is not there in that picture.
Well, we made up a story about, there was always an emphasis on men being the heroes of some super force that saved the world from disaster. And we flipped it around and made it a women's force that did that. And Tripathi was the king of this nation that needed some help. And at the end, he waves his blessings in that photo over everyone. We had an American TV program called Mission Impossible, in which this team of detectives, maybe troublemakers, per the CIA style of messing in everybody's business when they aren't invited. But anyway.
So how was he as an actor?
Oh, he was terrible. Yeah. At least I had the sense to keep out of the camera. No, he was great. I'll say no more.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Robert.
Lalit, my queen is there. I think she needs to come in.
Oh
yeah, please.
Anita was the queen.
Yeah, please do. Please do. Most welcome.
She's just stepped out into
Okay, we can come back. So we can come back to the queen later. But here, I would like to digress a little and bring in Sir's family. I know his family members may be watching, but I'm sure that Ruchira is there. So I would like to bring her in. If she's there, can she please tell me that she's there? You
hello.
Have to. Yeah.
Yes.
Hello, Ruchira. That's
hello everybody.
Yeah, very nice to see you here. I want you to tell me pointedly, how is sir, as a father, because we had his image as a teacher, and he was very cool, he was very balanced, he was like a rishi. But how was he like a father?
Actually, he wasn't much different as a father. The qualities and the characteristics that all of you have been
Can you
talking
mute
about.
yourself? Somebody is making a difference, a disturbance. Sorry, Ruchira, please go on.
Yeah, so I was saying that he wasn't much different. You know, some of you talk about his, that he was cool, he didn't get upset, and you know, sometimes there were instances where you know, people would come and shout. Actually, when Anju Auntie was talking about this incident of union leaders, I remember one that happened at our place as well. And I think he was a pro VC that time, and there was this group of people or group of students who came to our house, and they didn't just come, they actually entered the premises. Wow. And they were shouting, yes, and it was really scary. All of us were inside, and at one point I thought that, you know, they're going to start breaking the windows or something. They were quite aggressive. And yeah, I mean, his approach to the whole thing was the same thing. I mean, they were shouting, he just stood there and he let them all shout, and then he started speaking. And I think some of the students said that, you know, we can't hear you, speak louder. So he didn't get upset. He said, you know, this is the level that I'm going to speak at. You want to listen to me, keep quiet. So yeah, I mean, at the end of it, they toned down, they quietened down, and he said what he had to say, and then they all went away. So the experience that I've had has not been much different. Also in terms of, you know, how he has, I guess, modeled himself to us. He has not really, I know that there are a lot of parents who are really involved in, you know, step 1, step 2, step 3, and he's kind of left it to us in terms of observing and figuring things out, in terms of how we want to be as people, and how also to find our path in the wider world.
He gave you the freedom to do what you want to do in life.
Yeah, I mean, that's what he said to us when we were young. I mean, there is a caveat to it, because if you don't know what you want to do in life, then you keep going round and round. But there was never any pressure or any kind of I think any kind of expectation really, in terms of how many marks you need to get, and stuff like that. So I mean, that way it was quite a stress-free childhood that he allowed us, and quite a, I mean, I really look at my childhood with a lot of fondness, because the exposure that he allowed us, there were so many instances. I mean, he talks about there are a lot of new things that I'm getting to know as well. You know, his association with social activism in the 70s is something that I actually didn't know about. But from the time that I can remember, I know that, you know, I was involved in things like Babri Masjid protest. He took me there. I wouldn't say he took me, he actually allowed me to tag along. So there were places that he would just allow me to come along if I wanted to go. And Babri Masjid was one of the things where he just let me come. I remember going to these, you know, numerous sessions with at some of the uncles and aunties, where, you know, they would just have these long discussions over cups and cups of tea, about, you know, what's wrong with the system, what they can do to improve the system, which was not very exciting for a young child. But I think the only saving grace was that he would allow me to, there would be some young child that I would get to play with during all these discussions. But I guess somewhere down the line, it kind of seeped in, and I think I was just very blessed to be growing up in that kind of an academic community.
Ruchira,
I really value that.
I just want to ask you a question. I hope, sir, as well as you don't mind. I want to know, it's not possible that as a father, he may not have been upset at some point of time, angry at some point of time. How did you see him when he was not happy? Can you give me an example how it was, the experience, and how you felt a father who was always so cool and composed? What upset him sometimes?
So I guess the most defining characteristic about Pa is the amount of importance that he gives to relationships. And I know, I mean, the times that I remember him getting upset would be, for some reason, if he didn't really behave in the way we were supposed to behave. And I know that he would get upset. He would not be happy. The way for him to show his disagreement or his unhappiness would be that I think he would probably go quiet for some time. I mean, I don't remember him shouting, screaming ever. He's definitely not that kind of a person, but he would probably quieten down a little bit, and you would know that, you know, you had done something which he didn't like. But I think pretty much apart from that, I don't really remember him being upset. I mean, I would like to think that I was really an angelic child, but I don't think that's true. But
no, I like that you said that when he went quiet, that was an indication that he was perhaps not happy. Thank you very much, Ruchira, for coming and sharing your comments and your observations about your dear dad. So I want to, before I bring, there is another student of sir.
If you want to bring in Anita, is she? Probably they would like to go.
Yeah,
I think
yeah. If she's there, Robert is. Anita is there. I would like to have your take as well on sir.
Unmute yourself.
Unmute
yourself, Bob.
Bob, unmute.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. I have several things I want to thank you for. One was when you were a graduate student, you had us over and you cooked Indian food for us. And that was our first introduction to Indian food. And since you and your brother and father had to cook for themselves, you were a great cook. The second thing was your help in my dissertation. You suggested that I come to Allahabad to do my work, and then what'd you do? You found housing, you found a cook, you found furniture, you found a research assistant, everything. And then when I came back to Ann Arbor to write it up, that's when you had your Fulbright and you were able to be on my committee. So that was a wonderful, wonderful experience. And the third thing I want to mention is how you and your family and friends taught us the importance of family and community, something that we don't have. It's not as strong in the States, and we feel such warm feelings towards you and all of your colleagues and family. And I can't wait to come back and see you again.
That's great. Thank you very much, Robert and Anita, for your contribution, for your input. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Right. So if I come back to you, sir, that you you went again to as a Fulbright Senior Fellow in the 80s and 90s. And would you like to tell us something about how you interacted and how you brought it to your department? Would you like to make a comment on that?
You're talking about 1980s, or you're talking about my
no, let's say 1980s, when you went again to as a Fulbright Senior Fellow.
Well, prior to my going to United States, Bob had visited us. Bob was a Fulbright professor, and we had taught together. We had done research together. And prior to me, Professor Naidu had also gone to University of Michigan, and it was all due to Bob's support. This was where we were studying student stress. And what happened in 1982, when I went, they were not able to finish that data analysis and other kinds of things. So I was there with Bob. We finished that project. We wrote 3 papers out of that project involving all 3 of us, Bob, myself, and Professor Naidu. They got published in Journal of Personality, Social Psychology, and other important journals. Another important thing which I think which happened there was that I also, for some classes, I was able to involve myself in teaching. That happened. There was a lot, I think, which happened during those days, because what really happens during such periods is that you're able to reflect on where your research is going, where your teaching is going, and where other things are going. So that, I think, was very important. And I was able to come back and maybe bring back what I had learned during my stay at the University of Michigan during 1982. Because just after I came back, Professor Sinha had already left he had retired and he had left for Patna. I became the head of the department and I just took over. So there was a lot of those kinds of responsibilities which happened. And whatever little I had learned seeing people in good places like University of Michigan Institute for Social Research, I was able to sort of use that information, that kind of experience in running the department.
Sir, I just want to know, I know the Raghu will come on what has been your seminal contribution to the department. But if I ask you, after you became the head and before that in association with Professor Sinha, who also taught us, he taught me perception, I still remember him. So what, if I ask you, what change you brought about, which you really think in sort of modernizing, bringing psychology, Allahabad University ahead of what it was?
Well, there are 2 or 3 things, Lalit. I would say that we were the first in India. We were the first university in India to introduce a course on organizational behavior in 1973. Till then, most universities used to teach industrial psychology. So our university was the first which did it. The second, I think Priya was talking about this course on social change and social psychology of social change. That's something which I persuaded Professor Sinha to introduce. There was a teacher at the University of Michigan, Rob would remember him, Frank Andrews. I'd taken a course on social change from him. And I thought that that was something which we needed to do here in India. And the reason for that was that most of the work which we had already done in this department, it focused on social change. And we were not really involving our students in the teaching of in teaching social change and particularly changes which are taking place between generations. Professor Sinha ended up writing a book on that, and so on. So that's something which happened in 1972 after my return. And Bob's presence in the department introduced pre-doctoral courses. I think that's very important. And another person who was instrumental in providing this kind of support was that 1978 Professor Janak Pandey came from I.I.T. Kanpur, and he also had his degree from University of Kansas. So together we were able to sort of develop a PhD program which no other department in the university had. It was a PhD program with coursework. I think most of these people who are present here include Anju and Gyan Mudra. I can see Gyan Mudra, Rajiv and Rashmi, or for that matter, Rajiv. You know, all of these people, you know, they got exposed to this. And even to this day, these people keep telling us that those courses which we introduced at the pre-doctoral level, they help them in their research. So, and then this was followed by introduction of the semester system. We were the first to introduce the semester system in the university. No other department had semester system. The kind of evaluation which we introduced was unique to our department.
Wonderful. Wonderful, sir. Before I come to the last segment of my interview, I know the time is going very fast, and Raghu is there for his statement as well. So I may like to bring in, if one of his students, Rashmi Rekha Sinha, is there in the audience, and because she's the lady who brought about LinkedIn, if I'm right. Rashmi, are you there? Can you unmute yourself if you're there?
I think she has left. There was a message in the chat box.
Oh, sorry, I couldn't see that. Anyway, that's I would have loved to talk to her. So let's come to your after your retirement, sir. You turn into a new leaf, and after doing so much for the university, for the teaching, you have totally gone into Gandhiism in a way, and you are Kul Guru of Swaraj Vidyapeeth. What was the reason why you have gone to this, and what is the relevance that you really see in today's world for Swaraj Vidyapeeth?
Well, Lalit, this is something I think which Kusum probably would know, and Uttara needs to know about Allahabad. And I think those of you who have been associated with Allahabad, because a lot of you really do not know that Allahabad was for a day capital of India. I don't know how many of you really know that. How many of you know about Allahabad Treaty, you know, which handed over let's say India to East India Company. So it became the company Raj actually started, it began here in Allahabad. Then I don't know how many of you really know that we were handed over to Queen Victoria here. In Allahabad, there is this Minto Park, and it stands testimony to we becoming the subjects of Queen Victoria. Now, what has happened is, I think we psychologists have been talking about not only, let's say, the kind of social change we were talking about, but one of the things which we have been talking about is that development is not only about GDP, we need to go beyond GDP. So you will find, for example, there are a number of psychologists who are working around the world who are talking about happiness and happiness index. So what basically Swaraj Vidyapeeth is talking about is that the kind of model which we have used, or we have been using, or which has resulted as a result of, you know, privatization, liberalization, globalization, is something which we need to sort of we need to rethink about, you know, what is the appropriate model for us. particularly for a large country like India. And Gandhi, long time back, talked about it, and he talked about a model which was very different. He was talking about that it should not be something which should be top-down kind of approach which we should take in development. It should be bottom-up kind of an approach which should be taken up. So what we really basically talking about when we talk about Purna Swaraj is that we're talking about a society where everybody is able to participate, is able to have a say. The weakest voices can be heard, where there's no oppression, where there is no discrimination, where there's only inclusion. And when we're talking about this, we want to focus primarily on decentralization. We want to have a state which is a very different kind of a state. It's not a state which takes over in place of its citizens. Right now, everywhere, whether it's India or it's United States, or for that matter, it's UK, it's the state which speaks on your behalf. You have no voice. It decides, what you can do, what you cannot do. So those are the issues which I think we feel very concerned about. And we feel that the model which has been adopted is a model which is basically a model which is based on Epicurean philosophy. It is something which encourages consumerism, and it's exploitative, and it must go.
That's
need to rethink.
That's great, sir. But I'm very curious to know, because I don't think Swaraj Vidyapeeth charges anything. It doesn't take any fee. So how are you heading such a significant organization without any funding?
Well, we do not accept funds from the government. We do not accept funds from foreign agencies. We do not accept. We don't charge students any fee. The teachers don't charge. They don't get paid. What happens is that we have somebody sitting to my left, for example, the person who is chairing, would come out and support this cause because he believes in it. Right. There are others like Raghu who support Swaraj Vidyapeeth. So it's run on the whatever finances it's able to collect from friends. That's all.
That's so motivating, sir. I really feel great to know you. I think I must bring it to a close now and I also want to open it to others. Before I would like to end, I would like to bring in my teacher from history, Vinay Chand Pandey. If he's hearing me, I would be very curious to know what a history department professor thinks of my teacher in psychology. Sir, Vinay ji, aap sir sun rahe hain meri baat?
I think he's left.
Just unmute you. Unmute yourself.
No, I can see his name.
Oh, really? Great.
No, he's talking, but he's muted.
Oh, right. He's back, I think.
Thank you.
Sir,
Can you hear me?
Sir, आपको सुनना बहुत जरूरी है. Psychology, the history.
मैंने लिखा भी है कि Professor Tripathi is one of the few persons who become legends in their lifetime. And I would like to say that institutionally, for the institution that is the Allahabad University, for the discipline that is psychology, for the larger field that is education, his has been a very, very significant and signal contribution in so many ways. By personal example, by innovative interventions, and by all kinds of other, what I would like to say, other kinds of initiatives. He has allowed us to reinvent ourselves at a time when everything is dark outside. At the present moment, I think the university is facing an existential challenge. And we hope that things may improve, but the perfectibility of man and institutions is always a chimerical thing. But still, I think that we have to keep hope. Professor Tripathi has always believed in the future. He's always believed in karma, in doing things the best way you can do it. And that is the secret of success of Professor Tripathi as a teacher, as a mentor, as a creator, as a person who has kindled minds. And we are all extremely happy to be able to share this opportunity. Lalit, you have really our gratitude to you to bring together such a lot of people with Professor Tripathi, and we look forward to other interactions.
That's great, sir. I don't want to beguile myself by saying that they have come for me. They haven't come for me. They have come for Sir R.C. Tripathi. And I still remember your gratitude to me, especially attending the classes of French Revolution. I still remember. I can still imagine your voice and how people from other departments used to come to attend the classes of French Revolution by you. So thank you so much, Pandeyji, for your input, and what a fitting tribute to Professor Tripathi, who has been our loving teacher. I would like to now. Yes, sir.
There is a connectivity to here, but
yeah, please. Maybe you have to unmute yourself.
No, he is unmute. There's some connectivity problem.
Yeah, you can conclude, sir, if you want to.
No, I simply want to say that Professor Tripathi has always been an inspiration to all of us. And I'm sure he will continue to inspire us to do our best in the limited circumstances we find ourselves. And there is a great challenge before us today in this country, in the field of higher education, where dark forces are bouncing on it from all sides. And institutional integrity has all but vanished. So Professor Tripathi has kept the flag flying high, and we are all with him in this initiative.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir. Now, Professor Yoganand Sinha, that's how I should address you. Do we go to you, or can we take about one or two interventions or questions, or if anybody wants to pay tribute, can raise their hands? What do you say, Raghu?
No, keep it open. I think as many people who want to participate.
Yes, so I have to know from the organizers how long can we go, but
Vinay's phone mic is unmuted, just muted because there's a fan or something working.
Okay, yes, I think I've muted it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So is there anyone who wants to pay tribute or say something? I can see Mala Sinhaji. Yes, Malaji, please make your input.
Good evening, sir, and good evening, everyone. Sir was my PhD supervisor. And all I want to say is that I do unconditionally and without questioning anything that he asks me to do at the academic level. And I think some of the best things that I've done is because he's told me, would you like to do this? And just because he has said it, I just say yes. And that's enough for me. I don't worry about whether it's my area or how it's going to impact me. The fact that sir has said something is perfect for me. And this is what I want to tell sir, that you have been the cause of my evolution.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much, Malaji. Yes, anyone else? Anybody else wanting to say something for dear R.C. Tripathi? Kusum, Kusum, Professor Tripathi said something. Something to you and Uttara. Do you want to make a statement? Kusum, unmute yourself.
I would just very briefly say that we are very thankful to Professor Tripathi for accepting to be part of this event, and we are very privileged. And I remember him as one of the best teachers in the university. And I also recall that when I was a student, there were two departments that were really looked up to in the Allahabad University. One was my father's department, the botany department in the science faculty, and the other was psychology, which was supposed to be like the top of all the other departments. Not that the other departments were bad, but they were supposed to be the two best departments at the cutting edge of their subjects. So I think he has largely contributed to giving that department that preeminence. So thank you very much, and we wish you all the very best.
Thank you. Thank you, Kusumji.
Yes. Now, Yoganand, I can hand it over to you for your statement. Unless somebody wants to say something.
Lalit, I think we should invite Janakji to say a few words. He's
sure.
For a very long time, and I think he is there. Yeah, he's there. I can see him in the panel.
Yes, Professor Janak please. I'm sorry because I was lost in the conversation. Please have your say for Professor Tripathi. Most welcome, sir.
So please unmute.
Sir, unmute yourself.
Yeah.
Unmute. Yeah.
Yes, sir. You are
I was not prepared, but I was listening. It is a story how I came to Allahabad. And I was not applicant, and then I became applicant, and we appeared for professor interview, got appointed, but there was a fear that whether I will come for interview or not. Then Professor Tripathi scheduled a PhD viva on the day of interview, in which I was examined. So I came to appear in interview as examiner of a PhD thesis supervised by Professor Tripathi. Now, can you believe that a person from outside of the institution is welcome that way? And we were competing in the same interview. And that has been the amazing experience to work with Professor Tripathi in the department. I used to live in Mehdauri village, and I did not have any transport. There may have been dozens of occasions that Professor Tripathi had to drop me to my home. There is another experience which I would like to share. My son went through a bad accident, and he got saved. And then Mrs. Tripathi plays for there is a Kamta temple in
Chitrakoot.
We did not know that. But she prevailed on, ये तो किया हुआ है, वहां जाना है, चलिए. And Professor Tripathi made all the arrangement. We went Chitrakoot and took a round of the temple. It was probably several kilometers and all that. So that has been a kind of support. And there is another experience. I think I grew up more in the department when I joined the department, and Professor Tripathi has been a model or teacher in development as a person. So thank you, Professor Tripathi, for listening all this, because we never talk about these things, but this is a right occasion to express it. It has been great to be a colleague with you and work on many projects and doing our best in establishing the department to move towards excellence in teaching and research both. So it has been a collective journey. And another thing, he never takes credit of anything. You know, it is a very unique personality he has. So we share collectively the achievement we have made under your leadership. Thank you, Lalit.
Thank you so much,
thank you.
Professor Janak Pandey. I really appreciate your valuable views and your take on Professor Tripathi. And you very rightly said he doesn't take any credit for himself. And I think that's the sign of a saint, not a human being. So my gratitude to Professor R.C. Tripathi again and again. I would like to thank Rashmi Kumar, especially Namita Pandey, Kavita Agrawal ji, of course Raghu and Ruchira for allowing me, for listening to me through my nags to them. I want to get this, get that. But the session is now at the last stage, and I would like Raghu to tell me, shall we take some opinions, or and then we are very keen to listen to you, Raghu, because that's very important.
Well, friends are there to embarrass you, no? So it's all right. I will speak.
Yeah, no. You ab kitni der tak aap bach sakte ho? And I still remember that you have been giving me the credit always that I lent you my notes.
Right from intermediate to BA, and for some quick reason I don't know, I got a few marks more than the original note writer.
And I have not understood till today what is there in my notes that was valuable to you. I think they were all crap. Yeah. Please go ahead, Raghu.
Well, let me first begin by acknowledging another person whose note I read and kept doing rather well in class, and that's Priya's notes. And she should, I'm sure she remembers.
I'm sure she's smiling.
Yeah, I am sure. It's a very difficult task for me to talk about Professor Tripathi, for a very simple reason that he is the easiest person to talk about. The reason being that in his emphasis on relationship and the relationships that he forged, not only with me, with many of you who have already spoken, and with anyone that I saw him deal with, there was one characteristic which I've always admired and which we have talked about in certain theoretical terms, is that you cannot embarrass or demean anyone in the name of helping that person. In any relationship, and this had been the experience of many of us as students who came from different kinds of schooling, including a Jesuit kind of schooling, where the teachers, one of the primary tasks of the teacher or the relationship established between the teacher and the student was to belittle you. In the hope, Father Rego being a great example of that, in the hope of improving you. Parents do that with children, teachers do that with, and all in good love, good faith. But I have never seen anyone being diminished in his presence. With his knowledge, he made everyone feel worth himself. That goes for also those people who opposed him, whether in politics or inside the university or anywhere. None of his opponents, even till today, can say that he brought me down. They will only say that he related, he stuck to his guns, but they will never be felt insulted or demeaned. And that quality is actually, Lalit, the quality of a saint. That anyone who comes in the presence of that person never feels small.
Absolutely.
And that is the notion that I was hinting at, that nobody fears him. That notion is something. There's another side to his personality as well as his teaching style, which, sincerely speaking, I hope most of us have followed in our teaching days, is that when you meet him, you want to know him more. There is something in his being that invites you to know more about the subtleties and nuanced existence of life, rather than simple, broad simplification and कहता सर हाथी के पैर में सब जानवर का पैर वाला generalization of Panchtan. He doesn't take that. He gives you the nuanced existence. And the best part of that nuanced relationship is, the more you try to know him, the more you come to know yourself. And that, again, is the attribute of an acharya or a saint, for that matter. Any effort to relate is not an effort to relate to a deity or to just another episodic person, but any relationship that he establishes, even in political sphere, even in the social sphere, you come to know a little more of yourself, which in turn feeds into the relationship itself. So that relationship becomes absolutely growth-oriented and open. His inclusiveness is precisely this. And in his inclusiveness, there is no other. And there is a paraphrase or a parody of Kabir, which I would like to put in. Kabir somewhere wrote that you should uttai phailao pair jitta ho chadar, or something to that extent. Jitti mili chadar, sabse bahar nikle paon. Whichever category you use to describe Professor Tripathi, you will find that it is insufficient, because there is a growth dynamics in that relationship which says you cannot be categorized into boundaries. You cannot be categorized into this. And that is the sign of inclusiveness. It is seen in intergroup relationships. It is seen in his personal life. It is seen in my, I agree with everyone out here. I wouldn't be what I am without that relationship. And hence, I would correct Lalit. A person like that doesn't retire, because teaching is not an episode in his life or an episode in anyone's life. Teaching is just an excuse to keep a relationship going. And that relationship makes him a teacher all the time. So he might have turned a new leaf, which is really not new, I think, but continued to teach even when he wasn't, quote unquote, a teacher officially. And that is the saga of Professor Tripathi. It continues. And Lalit, you did a program a few months ago, almost a month ago, on Firak.
I did, yes.
Remember? So
yes.
if I can loosely translate one of the Firaks, we are so blessed to have lived in this time. And those who have not been taught by him are jealous of us that we have lived and related to him and been a teacher. फिराक पे नाज करेंगे कि तुमने फिराक को देखा था, वो नाज करेंगे कि हमने फिराक नहीं इनके साथ पढ़ा था, पढ़ा भी था, कलीग भी हुआ था और अब भी हो रहे हैं. I only wish, my only regret is that he should have grown a beard. But that apart, I think I have no regrets in that relationship. Thank you, Lalit, and thank you, sir, for being there for us.
Thank you so much, Raghu, for putting so seminally. I would like to narrate that share. आने वाली नस्लें तुम पे फक्र करेंगी हम असरो, आने वाली नस्लें तुम पे फक्र करेंगी हम असरो, जब उन्हें ये मालूम होगा कि तुमने सर आर.सी. त्रिपाठी को देखा था. That's how I will put it, sir.
I feel very embarrassed, Lalit. I don't know what to say, but thank you everybody. Thank you for connecting one more time with me. I can only say that you have given me one more reason why I should have become a teacher. Thank you.
I really feel choked to respond to what you said, sir. This is not, but I object. You said one more time. This is not the last time I'm organizing something or I'm meeting you. I would always come to you and always keep inviting you for my events. And I must say that whenever I have invited sir, he has come for my events. So, and there have been loads of reactions on, I mean, Deepti Mishra and Gyan Mudraji, they have written so kind words and their gratitude for
Lalit, can I take the
Tripathi.
liberty of recognizing someone in the audience who has not yet been recognized?
Of course.
And is a total outsider to this fraternity of psychology or students.
You should not only point out, but bring him.
I think there is a person, of course, related to me, but related to Professor Tripathi also because of her an Arbor connection. And that's my sister, who never studied psychology, neither under Durganand Sinha nor under Professor Tripathi, really? And therefore became a sort of a normal person, but has joined from Austin. I just wanted to acknowledge that it was great to see you here. And
if she wants to come in and have a say, she can.
I don't.
Hi, Shashi.
I thank all of you for...
Namaskar, Tripathi ji.
Namaste. Nice to see you here.
It was a pleasure to join this group, and thank you for letting us know about it.
I'm so grateful to all of you for making this a success. And let me honestly tell you that I have interviewed celebrities, but I never had an audience of more than 120. And today we had that. So you are my real hero, sir. So I'm so obliged and so moved by that. And I think this is my best in conversation that I've ever done. And I would like to now invite Shubhraji to make to offer a vote of thanks. Shubhra Pratik Gaur.
Thank you. And a big round of applause to all the audience, and of course, especially for Professor Tripathi, Professor Yoganand Sinha, and yourself, Lalitji. Thank you, audience of professors and their family members, and very special alumni from different parts of the world, as well as from within the country, and guests. We also propose a vote of thanks for Vijay Rana, writer, journalist, formerly at BBC, Uttara Sukanya Joshi for poster publicity and computer support, and all the volunteers. A very special thanks to Professor Tripathi, Professor Yoganand Sinha, and last but not the least, Shri Lalit Mohan Joshi ji, Director, Sannidhya London, and also Director, South Asian Cinema Foundation, who co-organized this event along with AUPAA, Allahabad University Psychology Alumni Association. And now I invite Dr. Kavita Shripat Agarwal, Secretary AUPAA, to conclude the 3-day program of Diamond Jubilee celebrations. Over to you, Kavita ji.
Okay, thank you, Shubhra. So now is the time to conclude the 3 days event. It cannot be done in just one line. So it is important to acknowledge the efforts of all those who were behind the curtains. I first acknowledge and thank the efforts of the executive body of AUPAA, who for past 2 months regularly conducting meetings, coordinating with everybody, and worked really hard to draw and make this event successful. Our president, Professor Rashmi Kumar, I feel she has even not slept well for past few weeks. I used to get her messages at 1 or at 5 in the morning. It is you, madam, who kept us motivated. Professor Tripathi, advisor of Alumni Association, attended most of our meetings and provided an invaluable guidance. Really blessed to be your student. Scholars Aditi Pandey always accompanied us with her beautiful smile and provided all technical support, whether it is providing Zoom links or sharing information, designing invitation, momentous, backdrops, etc., etc. On behalf of AUPAA, I really appreciate your efforts, Aditi, and of other research scholars for making this event successful. Yesterday's session, the alumni and student interaction was really liked and received a lot of appreciation. We had so much messages in chat box. Dear students, you gave us our future agenda. We will keep on having such discussions regularly. It is your dilemmas, dreams, your ambition that you shared with us. हमारी कोशिश होगी कि पंख लगा सकें. Students really worked hard for the cultural program. Your skit, your dance, aerobics, poetry, all unmatchable. Thank you for providing us a learning. Whole of this program will be made available on the alumni website and YouTube in some time. Alumni Association is just 2 years old. I invite you all to become members of this association. AUPAA has only like membership. You can contact me if you don't have bank details. I have provided email ID in the chat box. Thank you all for joining us in this 3 days event. We will have more programs in near future and wish to see you all there too and with same enthusiasm. Thank you so much. Thank you all.
Thank you, Lalitji.
Right, so I finally end the meeting, and once again thanking all of you. You have been wonderful, and it has been like a homecoming for me. Thank you very much. My last namaskar and salam to Tripathi ji as well as my dear friend Raghu. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.